everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to Eating Your Way to Nirvana. Can't you just see it? Plates and plates piled high with all of your favorite foods. Is this the bliss you've been waiting for? Just you and food and no one to disturb you? How long does Nirvana last? What if it could last longer than you've ever imagined?
I love this title. I love this topic. So, Marilyn, what is eating to Nirvana for eating your way to Nirvana?
I thought you were going to say, what is eating you up? And I was like, that's a different take on it.
Different take on it, no.
Eating your way to Nirvana is the idea that food will satisfy every desire that you have and will be bliss. It can be your main relationship. The trouble is it doesn't really last.
It's so funny. I haven't thought of this in years. When I was a kid, I used to imagine just being able to have a whole room full of candy.
Me too.
Whole candy store in my closet.
No, I was a candy freak. In fact, my parents I had an allowance, and I can't even remember what it was. I think it was $1 a week. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
My parents allowed me to spend a nickel a day on candy. That was it.
Wow. But a nickel used to go a long way.
Well, a nickel would buy a candy bar.
Yeah.
It would buy a candy bar, like a Mars bar or a nougat bar or something. But I couldn't have any more than that. Right. It was amazing. Favorite holiday? Halloween. Hello.
Right. So what did that how did that affect you growing up? How did that make your relationship with food play out?
Well, my sense is a couple of different things. One is that was my main way of getting comfort, and I would say emotional nourishment.
Yeah.
My dad was a scientist off in his head. My mom didn't know anything really about how to have a child feel really loved and cared for. She used a lot of sarcasm. She really didn't work all that well. But I found food, and particularly candy. But it gave me something to hold on to. It was almost like having a teddy bear or something like that. But the way it did affect me is that I had to really work later as an adult to develop relationships with other people, and relationships that could be actually nourishing, and what that even meant. And I still look at that some days.
Yeah. But
food was my ticket to Nirvana from very, very early on.
Well, it's interesting because what I would say is up until the time I was 30, I had very little interest in or issues with food. I can remember growing up, my mother, I would say, was someone who did a lot of comfort with food. One of my siblings had a lot of issues around food. At the time, I would have said, I'm indifferent to food. What I'd say now is I was doing anti-food. So that probably there were issues there, but I was dealing with it by I don't need any,
not dealing with
me. And it was when I was in graduate school, I had a sinus infection and I took an antibiotic and it wiped out my digestive tract.
Oh my God.
And I spent 3 years barely being able to eat anything. And by the time I kind of healed from that, food had become, it was stop at the Lindt chocolate store on the way home from work to have some comfort. Food became this thing that was about comfort and what the food meant to me, rather than something I'm either enjoying eating or not, or whatever.
Well, and that's a great question for everybody to ask. What does food mean to you?
Yeah.
And just write down the answers.
Yeah. Well, I remember there was a Right Recovery for You class that I hosted, and it was in my town, and we had a few people there, but you had a lot of different little types of food.
Yes.
right? Like there was chips and there was raisins and there were, all these different things. And you had us like pick up something and actually look at it and,
Yes.
first like feel it and look at it and smell it and all this stuff. And then actually put it in your mouth, but don't chew it. And it was like,
Yes.
what sensations do you actually have when you put this in your mouth, and the texture and the taste and everything. And it was such an eye opener for me, because it was like to actually be so present with food rather
Yes.
than having it there to accomplish something. It's hard, like usually for me, food is just like, well, yeah, I'm hungry, you need to eat something, or it's a celebration with friends, and that means something. Like there's like all these things it means, instead of being actually with the fact that your body is going to ingest something,
Yes.
and what is that experience actually?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things, because I've done that a lot of times in different classes, it's been a while, but what came up for so many people was that the potato chip was kind of disgusting. Yeah. At the time they put it in that, or things had no flavor, or they tasted like chemicals, like Cheetos and various other things. So that was an eye opener. It was an eye opener when I did it. It's like all these things we think we like to eat, and in actuality, they don't really taste very good.
Right. Well, and then you have the whole, in the US, there was just a holiday yesterday. So it makes me
Yes.
think of things, in the US, we've got Thanksgiving, which is only about the food. Like it's having these special foods. But any kind of holiday, like a family will have their traditions around, the food and what food works with that holiday and what doesn't. And, the common denominator tends to be cooking way more food and eating way more food than actually works for you in your body. And it's such an interesting creation.
Yes, it is. And there's that interesting thing of people being forced to eat,
Yeah.
which you can get at holidays and certain ethnic groups, and the Italian mother, or the Jewish mother, eat.
Or just clean your plate,
Clean your plate.
don't waste the food.
Don't waste the food. People are starving in China.
Yeah.
But the other thing that brought up was my mother was into poverty and lack.
Yeah.
So she would buy, say for 4 of us, a pound of hamburger or a pound of steak, tough steak, we used to call it. She would cut it into 4 portions, and that was your portion. And if she didn't finish hers and put it in the refrigerator, you better not touch it.
Yeah.
So I learned that there's not enough.
Yeah.
The one thing that I kind of hoard, or I do go through my cabinets, is food, particularly canned food. And then I'll go through, oh, that expired. But it's like, I still have this sense of I would like to be surrounded with lots of food and have lots of choices. It's another reason I cook.
Yeah.
And then put it in the freezer. Oh, good. I'm going to have chicken soup or minestrone or beef stew or, something.
Well, and, like what I'd say, because I've known you a long time, you're an amazing cook. You love a really good restaurant with amazing food.
I do.
And there's the choice to enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other side, there's what we're talking about, where you're making it the source of being okay and stuff. So how do you shift from I'm surrounded by food because I have to be to feel okay to I indulge in amazing food because it's so fun for me? Like that's a very different energy. One's about like creation and enjoying and savoring your life, and the other is a necessity and a need to be okay.
Yeah. Well, it comes down to, for me anyway, knowing that you're enough.
Yeah.
It comes down to your being, making you the source of your life.
Yeah.
And that's not something that any of us are taught.
Yeah.
And just asking questions. Okay, if I wasn't going for food, what would I be aware of right now?
Yeah.
Am I truly hungry? Or am I looking for something to help with anxiety or help with depression? Or am I just feeling alone? What else could I do? What if I took a walk? And give yourself a lot of options, because a lot of this is about discovery of what lies underneath your choice for food.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, if you guys can see, I'm a bigger person. So definitely have been ingesting some food over the years. But it's very clear to me these days when I'm eating from the joy and the what works for my body, and when I'm eating for something else.
Yes.
And I'll tell a little story of this. So there was a time a few years ago where, I heard someone talk about a way of eating, and my whole body was like, whoa, whatever that is, I'm doing that. And I started eating this way. And it was very much about becoming very present with the food and the choices, and, eating basically what contributed to me and my body in that moment. And like overnight, I completely shifted how I was eating, and it was so easy. It was just like, yes. And
Cool.
the only thing that I missed was I was someone who for, 20-ish years, probably more than that, more like 40, had always had, like, I loved the like English breakfast tea with some milk in it. Right. And I was someone who at the, it's the afternoon, I've been working hard, I'm going to have some tea. Like, it was a whole thing. And the way I was eating had no dairy. And that was the only thing I missed, was the milk. And what it showed me was, it wasn't about the tea itself, it was what it meant to me. It was the ritual. What I ended up doing was becoming someone who has like 20 different kinds of teas, because I was experimenting with flavors and varieties and all this stuff, because I wasn't just always wanting this one same thing. But that whole experience got me so present with my body and eating in a different way. And so that's the story. But then now what I notice, like, there's times where I'm eating just because you're supposed to. It's lunchtime. There's times where it's truly a contribution to my body and nourishing, and I allow it to be that. There's times where it's like, I just want to sit here and read a book and munch on something, but I'm able to be present with each type of eating and not judge it.
Oh, cool.
Right. And just be like, oh, okay, I'm in a munchy mood. That's all right, And so to me, part of this too is it's the choice to be present with what is.
Yes. Beautifully said.
So much of our reality is messages about there's a way to eat and ways not to eat, and you got to find the right way to eat, and you should have this weight, and you should get this exercise, and blah, blah. And we have so much judgment about ourselves and food, and things that are saying food is everything, because look, we're surrounded by all these advertisements and all these points of view and articles and everything. So what if you find what works for you?
Yes.
What works for you and your body?
Well, that's the thing, Pam. We haven't talked much about bodies, but I find that so many people who have what's called eating disorders, they're so disconnected from their body. And technically, you eat for your body, folks. Your being does not need to eat. But if your being has decided that the only emotional comfort it can get is from food, it's going to do that. So how do people get connected with their bodies, Pam?
Well, one is you actually just say hello to your body. So right now you could put your hands on your body. So we tend to think of like, there's me, and I'm the whole package, right?
Mhm.
The physical and everything. But what if your body actually has its own conscious self, its own
Yes.
being, right? And then it's something that you can interact with. So the first thing is just to actually get present and say, "Hi, body." You know,
Hello.
I've been kind of ignoring you and going on autopilot with you for so long, and now I'm gonna change that and just be with you. And then what if you can ask your body questions the same way I can ask Marilyn questions?
Mhm.
And she, your body's not going to say, "Oh yeah, hey." But what if you can ask your body, "Hey, show me what works for you. Show me what you like to eat." Because what
Right.
if your body might like to eat something different than you, the being? There's an amazing book called Right Body for You that you
Mhm.
can go get and read that has a lot of these tools about communicating with your body. But then it's to me it's about being present and choosing and seeing what that creates.
Yeah, absolutely. Because your body's trying to communicate with you.
Yeah.
And if you don't respond to the feather touch, it's apt to bonk you over the head with something, get you sick, or just you have, or show you that the way you're eating is not really helpful to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this refers back to something you were talking about before that, like, to me, a lot of this is about shifting the energy.
Yes.
So, because, in that moment where I'm like, okay, I actually, if I really am present with me and my body would not like to ingest anything right now. But
Right.
me, the being, I'm like, oh, but I've got, I want that satisfaction that whatever it is that eating something right now would give me. What I find is if I do anything to shift the energy, and that could be even just standing up and moving to a different room and
Yeah.
then asking, what am I really aware of and what works for me and my body right now? Um, you know, and a lot of times I notice that when I go to, I'm going to eat something, it's my body's actually requiring some energy.
Yes.
And if I notice that, there's so many ways. I mean, one, I can just ask, "Hey, more energy." I can
More energy.
pull energy. I can move. I can, there's a lot of different things that you can do to create energy for you and your body. And once I notice that, then I'm not hungry anymore. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. But
Wow.
it's like this go-to thing. I mean, at least the way I was raised, you got to
Yeah.
eat to have energy, and you have to, if you're feeling tired and sluggish, you probably need some food. Like, it was this constant message of food is what's going to
Shift.
make your body work.
Yes.
And what if it's the food that your body actually would like to ingest makes your body work?
Exactly. And just that whole thing of also an association of food with wrongness. I'm going to tell a little story about. So Pam and I and another friend were staying at an Airbnb, and we'd agreed at the grocery store that we were going to split this rotisserie chicken. So I came in, I don't know, the second or third day and got it out of and I hadn't been looking, I hadn't had any, and I got it out. And I'm like, and I was in the tone of, oh, it's raining outside, or, I think it's time to turn the light on. And I said, oh, a lot of the chicken's gone. And both Pam and these are people who are very aware. We're like, did I do something? Did I eat too much? Or I was just like, and I would have done the same thing if it had been Pam getting the chicken out.
Yeah.
But we associate food or eating with guilt, or we have to share, or maybe there's not enough, or it was so instructive to me.
Oh, and that reminds me of something. I remember being a little kid and like they'd, put the plates of cake out or something and say, pick one. I wanted to take the big one,
Yes.
but I knew that's not okay.
Right.
You
Exactly.
can't want to have the nice big piece of cake. You should take
Yeah.
the little piece of cake. I don't know. It's just there's so many messages and
Gosh.
meanings and judgments
Yeah.
in food. It's
It's
amazing.
it's absolutely amazing. Yeah. And we buy all those points of view.
Yeah.
And it's like reactive. We react from guilt or, programming about what's okay and what's not okay. It's crazy.
So what to you is like the simplest first step in getting out of that programming?
Well, I think one is to identify it.
Yeah.
And just like this conversation we're having, oh yeah, I didn't. Write down, what are all my points of view about food? What did I learn from my family about food? Was there a scarcity? Did it mean you were honoring your mother if you ate everything? I mean, what are all, because none of it's real.
Yeah.
That's the first thing to really get. None of it's real. There are no points of view, no meaning to food that's actually real. It's all somebody else's point of view that you probably adopted.
Yeah.
So I would say that's the first thing, is to get really clear and then ask yourself, oh, is that true for me? Is it true that if I finish my food, I'm honoring my mother?
As you say that, I'm like, what? But that's what we grow up believing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That how I eat, I'm a good person or a bad person.
How much I take when others are around, am I a good person or a bad person? So just get really clear on what all of those points of view are that you've taken on, and ask yourself, is this still true for me? What is true for me about food?
Yeah.
What does it mean to me?
I like the asking, what's my reality with
yes,
food, right? Because it's like, what is true for me with this? Yeah. Another thing is, I'm not going to like go into using it here, but there's a tool called the Access Consciousness Clearing Statement, and you can find out about it at a website called theclearingstatement.com. But that's great for, as you identify those points of view, you can use that clearing statement to it's like an energetic eraser that just goes.
That's a great description. It's an energetic eraser. Point of view. Next point of view.
It works with the energy of the point of view, of the judgment, of the, where you're making yourself wrong, and helps just clear it so that then you have more choice. Yeah. So I would definitely check that out too.
I would. And I would go back to something I said earlier in the program. Ask yourself, every time you have food in front of you, or you desire food, let's put it that way. Oh, I think I need to eat. Ask yourself, if I weren't going to eat right now, what would I be aware of? Yeah. Because it's that awareness that will really help you to come back to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what it's all about.
That's a tool you'll hear us talk about a lot.
Yes.
So, is it time to cue the music?
I think it's time to cue the music. Thank you all so much, and have fun with food.